In this video we're going to talk about bindable element because bindable element is a nice way to create custom components where you have access to the binding engine by default. What we want to create is a simple my component. I'm not going to go through excruciating details on all of the bits and bobs around bindable elements. We'll tackle those as time permits in other videos. But let's look at how we can create a simple my component that has binding engine features built in. Just to cover the basics again, so I have a my component JavaScript file, a my component HTML file. I'm using my component in the HTML of the form, and then in the view I've got the my component JavaScript file imported so that the custom element code would fire, registering the component with a DOM. The first thing that we want to do when creating a component is just to create the class. So we'll do the same thing here. So we'll say class my component extends, and this is kind of where the fun part comes in. So I can just say crs binding.classes.bindable element. Once I do this, I'm inheriting from the bindable element that will do the parsing and the binding expressions on my behalf, and naturally I have to say custom elements.define and then my component and use my component class. So as it stands, it's not 100% complete yet. We need to be able to load the HTML file that we have, and to be able to do that we're going to use a read-only property. So that's a property that only has a getter. So we want to say get HTML. So the name of the property is a convention within the bindable element, so you have to use that. And then we can say return import.meta.url.replace.js with .html. So at this point of time, technically I have everything at the minimum required for my component to work. In the HTML of my component, I'm just going to put a div for now that says hello world, just to make sure that everything actually works as expected. And then once we've confirmed that it works as expected, we'll add some binding expressions to it. On the screen you can see my test page with hello world on it. You can see my component and then its content. So everything's working great. Let's go and check whether we can use binding on it now. We've changed the HTML. We have an h2 now that binds to a property called greeting, and we have a button that has a click event bound to update the greeting. So when I click on the button, it'll call this function, and this function will then again change the greeting. On the JavaScript side, we've called the preload function and just given the greeting a default value to start off with. So when we look at our screen, we should see hello world, and when we click on our button, we are changing that property to changed greeting. Okay, so here's our form. As you can see, the hello world default value is there. I click on the button and it says change greeting. So as you can see, the bindable element makes it really easy for us to create custom components that has binding enabled by default. Again, this is just one of the features that bindable element allows you to do. We'll look at some of the other features into the future.